Very good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for taking your hard-earned lunch break to dial into a really innovative series of webinars being brought to you by the Laois Offaly Education and Training Board. A lot of work has gone on behind the scenes to bring this series to you. Over the coming weeks, you will hear keynote speakers and some local case studies on key topics all around future-proofing your business. Goes without saying, the past 6 or 8 months have challenged every business to really look at our business models, look at how we do business, how we manage people, how we manage ourselves, how we manage every aspect of our lives. And of course, business and work is such a huge part of that. So that's where this series of webinars was kind of born from. So over the coming 5 weeks, you'll hear on topics of how to improve user and customer experience, how to protect you and your users and employees. That coming to you from the point of view of data protection and GDPR. Resistance to change is a topic we'll cover on the 7th of October. Business process improvement will be featured on the 15th of October, and that's looking at the business from a lean and agile point of view and how you can utilize software, leverage software in particular to drive your business forward. It'll be rounded out then on the 21st of October with a talk on how to measure business success. The team at LOETB have been really working hard in pulling keynote speakers, and they've got an uncanny knack for getting keynote speakers from not just the Midlands, but from all across the world. I'm not sure how they do it quite well, and I'm not sure how I got roped into this either, but they're hard to say no to. They're good people and they're doing some great work there too. I say that as somebody who has had a lot of involvement with them over the past 6 months, and primarily as a student. I've completed a lean belt course, green lean belt training course with them, and also a leading remote teams course as well. So lots of stuff on offer. So we're going to get a quick introduction into the services they provide a bit later. For today, we have 2 speakers for you. We've got Jeff Gothelf. Jeff's work centers around transformation, both in the digital and professional development sense. And also Aisling Kerwin from Laois-based IntegriLeads. Aisling is co-founder and sales director with the company, and they specialize in B2B lead generation. So again, 2 really good keynote speakers coming up today. We will invite questions throughout the talk. What we'll ask you to do is look at the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, put a message in there, ask your question, and when each speaker is finished, we will put the questions to the speakers then. So we'll allow the speakers to have their 20 minutes and 10 minutes to deliver their talks, go to their slides, and then we'll have the Q&As. We'll put the questions to them there at the end as well. And our plan is to be finished up by about maybe 5 to 2 to let everybody finish their lunch breaks and get back to work. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Jolene Hall from LOETB. She's going to give us a quick overview of the services that the organisation provide.
Thanks, Ronan. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. As Ronan says, this is our first webinar in a series Future Proof Your Business, which we will be running over the next 5 weeks. So we're delighted to have Ronan on board with us today as MC. So as part of the webinar series, what we will be doing is each week we will introduce a different member of the employer engagement team to give you an overview of the supports and services that are available to employers and employees in the Laois and Offaly region. So as I say, I work as part of the employer engagement team. And I suppose for anybody that's not familiar with Laois and Offaly Education and Training Board, they may be more familiar with the VECs. And we are state funded to provide education and training in the Laois and Offaly region. The area that I look after is the Skills to Advance. It's a new initiative that was launched at the end of 2018 when employment was nearly at full capacity. And it's aimed at employees who are currently working to upskill them or reskill them. To avail of new job opportunities, maybe within their existing organisation, or if they want to source new job opportunities elsewhere. The programme is courses up to and including level 5 are fully funded under the Skills to Advance initiative, and courses at level 6 are 70% funded. And as I say, it's available and open to all employees, but it's particularly aimed at those who are who are maybe at risk of displacement, who are over the age of 50, or in particularly low skilled jobs. So just as Ronan said, look, we're delighted to roll out the webinars. It is a very challenging time for companies at the moment with Brexit and with COVID, and really the aim of the webinars is to provide yourselves with expert advice and training, if required, on how to implement digitalisation within your own organisation. And that may be something simple from maybe having an online presence, setting up your company online to increase sales. It may be creating a LinkedIn page to build relationships with other with customers, or it may be upskilling of existing staff in something like Excel, or to the very other end of the scale, it could be looking at cybersecurity within your own organisation. What we would hope maybe is at the end of this programme is that we would get a sense from yourselves what the training needs are of the companies in Laois and Offaly, so that we can respond to that effectively. Thanks, Ronan.
Thank you, Jolene. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce formally our first speaker. His name is Jeff Gothelf. Jeff work centres around transformation, both in the digital and professional development sense. He is co-author of the award-winning book Lean UX and the Harvard Business Review press books Sense and Respond and Forever Employable. Jeff works as a coach, consultant, keynote speaker, helping companies bridge the gaps between building business agility, digital transformation, product management, and human-centered design. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hey folks, thanks for having me. I'm going to share my screen here and walk you through a little bit about what is user experience design. And user experience design is important. I'll tell you about that, why that is as well. But when it comes to kind of digitalizing your business, one of the things that seems to fall through the cracks most often is the design of the site itself, the design of the user experience. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm just going to go through what is user experience design, what it isn't, why it's important, and what are some of the benefits that you can get from really focusing not only on the design of your site or your service, but also on the customers that visit it and how to continuously improve based on their learnings. So what is user experience design to begin with? It's the process used to create successful customers or humans. Now that's something that, it's a quote I attribute to myself, but nevertheless, your goal is less to design a fantastic experience and more to make your customers successful. And that's ultimately our goal. But to clarify these things, UX is different from UI. If you've heard the term UI design, those are two different things. UX is user experience, and I'll show you the difference. UI stands for user interface, and they're actually not the same thing. And there's an infinite number of graphics and charts and memes that are out there to help draw the difference between what is UI, what is UX. There's this one, like the components of the drink make up the actual drink itself. There's this one. UI is, well, we made a pretty bottle, but UX, we actually made a usable bottle, right? There's a difference between that. Again, UX is of coffee. They get a bit more ridiculous as you go on. This one, I don't even know what this one means. I just thought it was funny, so I thought I'd share it in here as well, right? But this is to clarify this, right? The UX is the total experience of interacting with a system or a service, a process, or a product. So the entire experience of somebody engaging with your business is the user experience. UI is the interface of that system or that product, which is in digital cases often displayed on a screen, right? And that's the fundamental difference between the two. Just to further illustrate this, like this is good UI design, right? This tells you exactly what's in the bottle. It's poison. There's poison in this bottle. Don't drink it, right? The UX of this, however, will vary by user. So this is very good UI design, right? Again, to kind of drive this home, we create UI elements, right? These are the elements of the interface that create an experience, and we hope that the interface elements that we create don't generate this user experience, right? That's the result. We want to make our customers successful. And it's funny, like as you go through this, there are, and you've experienced this over and over and over again, right? This is, and especially these days on mobile, everything kind of being mobile first, you end up in situations like this, where you're navigating to a website like The Guardian, and less than 12% of the actual content of the article is visible when you first get there, right? All of these features are in there for a reason. I understand why they put these pop-ups and these declarations and the cookies and all that kind of stuff in there. But the bottom line is this is the experience that I'm having, right? So they've designed this interface and they've given me an experience where less than 12% of the content is actually visible. This is ultimately our goal, right? We're trying to achieve this. This is the goal of user experience design, is that delight or that ease of use that makes our customers successful. Good UX is critical to successful products. If you recall MySpace, amazingly successful, but because they allowed everybody to customize the user interface in whatever way they wanted, it yielded a user experience that became impossible to use, which is exactly the reason why Facebook ultimately ate their lunch. Facebook provided and provides to this day significantly less customization in an effort to create a consistent, usable user experience across all channels. And that's what differentiates these two products and services. MySpace is in the bin of history, and Facebook is destroying democracy. But nevertheless, they had really good user experience design. And so here we are. Now look, this is again, kind of to drive this stuff home. Good user experience is critical to successful products. It's not just the elements. I don't know if any of you ever had one of these. I had one of these when I'm in my 20s, maybe early 20s. This is an early MP3 player, the Rio. And if you look at the controls on this, it has the same number and level of controls as the iPad. But I'm sorry, the iPod. Why did the iPod crush the Rio? It crushed the Rio because they built an entire user experience around the iPod. It wasn't just scroll wheels and buttons and a small screen. It was scroll wheels and buttons in a small screen coupled with an ecosystem that allowed for downloading ease, adding songs, removing songs, playing songs, storing more songs, right? Interacting with those songs created a far more viable ecosystem for the success of the iPod, which ultimately redefined how music was downloaded and consumed over time. And again, we see this from product to product to product. This is the interface in the Toyota Prius. This is the UI, and it gives you the information that you may or may not find valuable, right? Which affects the driving experience of the car by this interaction, right? And the cost for a Prius, roughly speaking, at least in the US, is about $30,000, right? By the same token, this is the user interface and the user experience of a Tesla, right? They are focused on a premium experience, and they're using user experience design as reflected in their design choices that leads to a significant increase in the value, the perceived value of the vehicle. This is an $80,000 vehicle because they spent time on the user experience of this. They've designed a better driving experience, information experience, etc. Right? And so this is why we need to focus on our user experience design, because it differentiates us in the marketplace and it tells us very specifically, right, what we can charge and what we can't charge for our products and services. Some cleaning going on outside my door. I apologize for that. The joys of working from home. Disciplines. UX design is a broad field. It's an umbrella term, and there's lots and lots of disciplines within there, right? As you start to think about incorporating UX design, you don't necessarily need a person from each one of these, but you do want to consider these elements as you're building things, right? There's information architecture, which is the labeling and the organization and the sense making and the wayfinding. Like, what are your menu items? What do you call them? Where is the menu? What is it linked to? Interaction design talks about the workflow and the navigation. And do you put the, the positive button on the left and the negative button on the right? That type of thing. There's the visual design, the folks who typically create the UI. There's the content strategists. These are people who think about, well, how are we going to present ourselves and what do we want to say? There's people who do research. And again, it's a lot of stuff in here, and I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but the idea is that there's a lot of components that go into this, and we want to think about the words that we use, the placement on the screen, the logic from screen to screen to screen. And it goes on and on and on, right? There's copywriting and there's animators and prototypers. As you get into larger organizations, they're going to have folks who do some of this work as well. The thing I want you to remember from all of this is that UX design is not optional. If you don't have designers, right, you're still going to get a design. It's just likely not going to be a good one, right? Whoever actually builds your website or your app or your service is going to do that, right? You're still going to get some kind of a user experience. And so if you're going to build these products and make the effort without a focus on UX design, you significantly increase the likelihood that those things are going to fail. And that's very, very important. And again, there are a significant number of components here that talk about the utility of the thing that you're building. We're talking about the usability, can people actually use it? And then ultimately, does it look good, right? So utility and usability is a big focus of the user experience. And then UI really focuses on the aesthetics. There is a great diagram that's been out for over 20 years by an American design leader named Jesse James Garrett, where he talks about the elements of user experience. And this is by far, I'm guessing, the best known representation of UX design. Came out in 2000, and it still holds up. It shows you that at the root, kind of the foundational level of good design is the needs of the user, right? The objectives of the service that you're building. And then on top of that, we start to build functionality. We then decide how that functionality is going to flow from screen to screen to screen. We're going to talk about content and information. And then the topmost visible layer is the actual visual design layer. And that's ultimately what we want to focus on. Now, I showed you a lot of examples of what happens when you do focus on really good design. What happens when we don't pay enough attention to the design, or we kind of do it either implicitly or we don't pay enough attention to it? Stuff like this makes it into our experiences. So this is a photo of the display in a new car that my friend Gina in the United States bought for herself. And Gina sent me this photo because she knows I love this stuff. And she sent me this quote that came with the photo. And she said, look, my fancy car dashboard alerts me when a tire is too low on air. I spent 15 minutes filling and letting out air for my right rear tire because it told me that my right rear tire is low on air. And nothing ever changed on the dashboard and the display. And it took her a while to figure out what happened. And she realized that the designer of this system did not account for the difference of where this information is consumed and then where it's acted upon. And the difference here is 180 degrees. So when you're sitting inside the vehicle and you're facing forward, right, you have a clear sense of what right rear means. But when you go to act on that, you're outside facing the car, you're going to put air in the wrong tire in the opposite side every single time, right? This is in tens of thousands of vehicles, right? Because somebody didn't pay enough attention to the user experience of this product, not just the display, but actually where the driver is expected to take action on the car itself. Now today they fixed this. There's just a diagram now of the car and it lights up the tire that's low on air. So you don't have to decide right from left, that type of thing. But this is the kind of stuff that comes in there. When you don't think about the language that you're writing in your product or service, you end up with promotions that look like this. There's a fantastic taxi hailing service in Europe and here in Spain where I live and other places called My Taxi. It used to be called My Taxi. They rebranded and the name of the service is called Free Now. These are the ads and the pop-up messages that came up as they were starting to roll out the rebranding. It literally says, My Taxi will be free now, right? I can take taxis all I want. Doesn't cost me a thing. I never get charged for it, right? This is user experience design. The copy, the words, the way that you position yourself is user experience design, right? And that is, again, something to pay attention to as you start to roll out more and more of this. Now, when we do this right, we see tremendous success. There was a company called Nest. Nest built these amazing programmable learning thermostats. They made changing the temperature in your house or maintaining comfort in your house a delightful experience, which if in most of the world, this is the kind of stuff you're dealing with, right? This was their competition. They took this experience and they put a fantastic user experience on top of it. And the net result was that they got acquired for $3 billion by Google, right? Because they paid a special attention and used design as a competitive differentiation between those two. One more case study, then I'll wrap this up. The other case study I really like is Instagram. Now, Instagram was acquired by Facebook about 7 or 8 years ago now for $1 billion, right? So a paltry $1 billion. Doesn't seem like a lot these days. When Instagram got acquired, there were over 3,700 photo sharing apps in the App Store. Why did Instagram win? Because if you think about it, Facebook, they didn't have to buy this for $1 billion. They could have built their own. They have 10,000 software engineers. The reason why Instagram won, beat out 3,700 competitors and got acquired for $1 billion was because they designed an experience with a single purpose in mind, which was to build community. Every single action that you took in Instagram in the early days of the product was designed to build and grow their community. That's what Facebook bought. They bought the community. In Instagram, it was take a photo, edit a photo, share a photo as quickly, as simply, and as easily as possible. They basically invented photo filters, something that we take for granted today. But because of that ease of use, that delightful user experience, they grew their community to 400 million users when Facebook acquired them, and today they're over 1 billion users, right? And so those are the benefits of focusing on design and how design can fundamentally change the success trajectory of your products and services. And so we always want to focus on our customers. We want to understand what they're trying to do, and we want to create as frictionless an experience as possible for them to achieve that. And so I hope that was helpful, and I hope that provided you with a bit more insight as to what design is, what are the user experiences and all those components, and how it can help make your products and services more successful. So that was really quick, super fast overview. I'd be happy to take your questions later when we do the Q&A part.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. I see you've put up a little bit about your book there, Forever Employable. It seems to be a topic, all right, that's quite common at the minute, about this whole thing about people in careers not going down just one channel, having kind of quite diversified and obviously be ready for change. So it tells us a small bit about the book, actually. You have a couple of minutes there too.
Sure, absolutely. In fact, here it is.
Hey.
Very exciting. So Forever Employable is my 4th book, and it is focused on so it tells my story of how I built the business that I have today, which is a consulting, coaching, and training business, public speaking business, based on building a platform of thought leadership and recognized expertise. The motivation for me about 12 years ago was to create a dynamic where I was no longer looking for work, but instead work was finding me. I wanted to create a situation where I was valuable enough to my industry, to my community, to my domain, that they would seek me out on an ongoing basis and always provide me with a series of opportunities. And in a world like we're dealing with today, especially with the pandemic, having that kind of safety net has been absolutely crucial as these opportunities are continuing to come in even during the pandemic. And the book talks about how to do that, how to think about what your expertise and your experience is, how to tell a compelling story, how I did it, how others have done it, what to do with that story, how to embrace new opportunities, and then ultimately how to create this reality where you've built a platform for yourself that lets the next job or the next opportunity find you on an ongoing basis. And super practical and tactical. It's short. It's only about that thick. So it's on Amazon now. I think you'll enjoy it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. We do have a question that's actually coming from Anthony Byrne there. Anthony, if you want to come in even and address the question yourself, happy to let you come on. You know more about this than I do.
All right. Thank you, Ronan. Hi, Jeff. Just a quick question. How does UX fit with customer experience? You often see the two things used interchangeably sometimes.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I feel like the customer experience label has been a bit of a land grab, attempted a land grab within organizations over the last few years. I feel like the CX folks that I've met in companies across Europe, UK, et cetera, and in the US, I tend to come from more of a marketing side. And I think that ultimately, I think that there needs to be a cohesive effort, right? I think if we start to splice this, well, this is UX and that's CX, well, our U's are C's, right? Our users are our customers. And so the differentiation seems to be a bit of a hair-splitting, land-grabbing attempt to me. Yeah. I think if we bring all those folks together and they focus on creating not only a great digital experience, but an overall service design experience, regardless of what channel people are interacting with us, then everybody wins. And so I'd like to see those come together. That's the short answer to your question.
Great, thank you. And just one quick follow-up. How would you measure good UX? Like, what would be the KPI?
Yeah, great question. We design things to impact behavior change in our customers and our users. So we measure the efficacy of our design in how much we have changed the behavior of our customers in a positive way. Have we made them more successful? Do they come back more frequently? Do they buy more stuff from us per visit? Did they tell their friends to come shop with us? And now we're acquiring customers through word of mouth. We're looking for those outcomes, those measurable changes in customer behavior to tell us that we've designed something good. And that's really important, Anthony, because as a designer myself, I love my work. I think it's brilliant, right? But if it doesn't attract customers and if it doesn't get them to interact more effectively, more successfully with our service, then the design that I love didn't work and we need to do something else. And that's the key. That's how we get objectivity into this. It's not art, it's design, right? You're solving a business problem.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff.
My pleasure.
Jeff, I have one myself as well. If we take that whole thing around user experience, in your own experience, particularly as a consultant, how often is it the case that companies have become so focused on what they're doing and their own internal processes that they've completely maybe lost sight of the actual user experience at the other end?
That happens about 98% of the time.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so busy. It's rare. It's very rare to find organizations where the customer is truly at the center of the experience. And the companies that do this, you know them and they're cliche, right? So we're going to talk about Apple. We're going to talk about Netflix. We're going to talk about Amazon, right? Google, depending on the product, right? So search, absolutely. Google Drive, less so, right? But generally speaking, those are the organizations that really focus on the customer. The rest of the world really is like, oh, I have a great idea. I'm going to build it and hopefully it'll work for somebody. And so sadly, it's the majority, not the minority right now.
Probably not surprised to hear you say those statistics. All right. We've one question there from somebody. From a training perspective, what skills are needed to ensure effective UX design in a company? How do companies suppose go about getting that skill set into their business?
So look, this is not something that there are plenty of training programs. There's an infinite number of books. If you're looking for recommendations, I'm happy to recommend a few, including the one sitting over my shoulder over there, right there. But generally speaking, there's UX boot camps. Hiring a UX contractor or a freelancer is a great place to start if you want to get a sense of what it's like to work with somebody like that and what kind of value they bring to the organization. And I think you should be upfront with them and say, look, we understand that we need this, but we're not really sure what this is or how it fits into what we do. And so make sure that you get somebody, if you're gonna bring in a freelancer or a contractor to start off with before you invest in a full-time hire or an agency to help you with this, make sure that you find somebody with enough experience that they are comfortable not only doing the actual work, but also helping you figure out how that work fits into everything else that you're doing as a business.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff is going to be here with us for a little while, so I'm going to introduce our next speaker then. And again, if there's more questions towards the end of the webinar, we'd be glad to put those to our speakers as well, and even to the people from the LOETB. So up next on our webinar is Aisling Kerwin. Aisling is co-founder and sales director with IntegriLeads, a Laois-based business. They're a B2B lead generation company specializing in quality appointment settings. They schedule sales appointments solely for IT companies who are looking to do business internationally. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aisling, and Aisling has about 10 minutes to talk to us about what they do. And again, for them, obviously user experience too is something that is of paramount importance to them. You're very welcome, Aisling.
Yeah, thanks, Ronan. Thanks for having us. Yeah, so look, I'll give an overview, I suppose, as to what it is that IntegriLeads do. It's nice to be asked to speak because we are a local company based in Laois, but growing, as you mentioned, Ronan, across in a global, I suppose, presence at the minute. So from my perspective, and just listening to the previous speaker, you know, as I say, I'll introduce, I suppose, to some extent what it is that we do. And I suppose, you know, we work within the IT space. So everything that Jeff has mentioned there in relation to UX, IX, all the kind of buzz terminologies might be going over my head and other people's heads a little bit, but that's what we do every day in terms of the companies that we're actually working for. So at IntegriLeads, we're a lead generation company, but we specialize in scheduling appointments for our clients. Our clients sit within that IT sphere. So IT is quite broad, as you all know. So they could range from managed service providers to software developers, workforce management solutions, cybersecurity, which is another big one. And once they have an issue in terms of trying to build a pipeline, trying to you know, maybe create a little bit of awareness around what it is that they're doing, they come to companies such as ourselves and others like us. And what we do is we put a personalized approach into actually generating the leads, generating the appointments for their sales and marketing teams. So we sit in the middle. Me as the sales director, on a daily basis, I'm speaking with sales and marketing professionals who have a pain point in terms of, right, we've come to the end of the road in terms of, you know, we have a big pipeline in terms of what we're closing, the deals that we're winning, etc. But we need more. Constantly, companies in that IT space are evolving, so they're constantly up against competitors who are also evolving, and everybody's trying to go after the same kind of clientele. So what we do is we'll go in and at a high level overview, we'll get an understanding as to what it is that they do, what their unique selling points are, and then what kind of criteria they want to give to us in respect of companies that they want us to engage with on their behalf and to try and schedule appointments with. So that criteria might look like the geographies they're trying to prospect into, the size of the companies, the verticals and the industries that they're strongest in, and then most importantly, the job title / job functions that they need their salespeople speaking with or engaging with. So back in the days of the old-fashioned days when we could meet, these would have been done face-to-face. So we would have been dealing with diary availability, scheduling salespeople's diaries, dealing with prospects, finding out their pain points in terms of, during that conversation, what would you like to gain from the meeting? You know, what are your pain points? What would you like to discuss? And all of that intel then we can give to that salesperson. So now, as a result of COVID and the pandemic, everything that we're doing is online. So this is where I suppose the digitalization and the digital aspect comes into play in terms of not only now are we working with these companies who are in that space, we also need to jump on that bandwagon, and we had to completely digitalize and relook at how we run as a business ourselves. So it's nice to be sitting in the middle of this conversation to look at it from the perspective of, okay, we're dealing with the likes of those UX, IX, cybersecurity companies, and it's lovely to hear and to listen to their stories and what it is that they do. Because from my own perspective, I'm not very technically savvy myself, but you know, when you're working with these companies and you see how much they're evolving and what they're doing, it always kind of blows you away to go, wow, this is how far things have gone. When you throw COVID into the mix, and we're a new business in Laois, as I mentioned, starting up with a footfall now that has kind of expanded outside of Ireland across maybe the UK, English-speaking EMEA countries, which you know primarily sit within Benelux, Nordics regions, currently into the US and into Australia. We're like, right, okay, now we need to take on board a lot of what our customers are doing and what we're doing for them, and actually bringing it into our own business. So I suppose in terms of then, it kind of, it made us sit back and see, right, what do we need to do in terms of, you know, things are changing. We need to be engaging with our customers. We need to make sure that our employees are happy in this space. We were in an office environment, which unfortunately can't be done anymore in respect of our business. So we had to work remotely. It brought its own pain points. You know, so digitalisation, I suppose, was a big thing, you know, in terms of what we needed to improve in respect of how we work. Working remotely, making sure that our cybersecurity is up to scratch, making sure that our customers can still contact us through the usual forums, and improving those, because, you know, they come with their own challenges as well. So in respect of what we kind of looked at ourselves as a business was, right, you know, we're working with all these IT companies, you know, customer experience is key, communication is key. So we needed to, again, pull that back into our everyday working. So the first thing we decided to look at as a company was our website, incorporating some AI into that. Again, coming from companies that we're working with daily, artificial intelligence is another kind of a buzzword these days, but for us, in terms of how we communicate and how clients were communicating with us, we decided to incorporate a chatbot onto our website. So it meant that, you know, I'm doing my sales calls daily. The ladies here in the office are working, or sorry, in the business are working, generating appointments for our clients daily. So sometimes, you know, if people have, you know, reached out to us with questions or queries or whatever else, we mightn't have been able to get back so quick. So you're losing maybe your downtime a little bit in terms of getting back to these people. So from our perspective, when we looked at overhauling the website, that was something that we wanted to incorporate, some AI into a chatbot. So we're actually in the middle of that project at the minute. In respect of then, that's kind of the client side of things. In respect of ourselves, as I mentioned, we're all working remotely. It's a very kind of a team environment that we're working in. We're very target driven, so we miss that kind of communication piece internally. So what we decided to do was then kind of look at, you know, how are we going to keep ourselves together as a team. We've onboarded some new staff just before COVID hit, and we've more that we're onboarding now into October as well. So we needed to look at the overall picture in terms of, we need to keep this together as a team. We need to make sure that people are happy in their environments. So we need to look at different maybe areas that we can communicate. So what we've done is now we've incorporated Yammer into our everyday workings. We use Microsoft Teams. We also use SharePoint as well for sharing documents, for training, etc. So that everybody has access to these tools, and we're all kind of up to scratch and trained up into how to use them. So again, it's just making sure that as a business we have it pulled together from the perspective of making sure that our employees are happy and that they're comfortable in their environment. So yeah, in respect of, like, you know, we've encountered problems along the way. Security obviously being an issue in terms of remote access, making sure that everybody is you know, familiar with the workings of our own internal CRMs, etc., and making sure that we're secure. So we had the opportunity then to speak with a lot of the clients that we're working with to say, look, okay, I know we're doing your outbound appointment setting for you, but we actually have this issue ourselves in house. What do we need to rectify? What do we need to fix? So you know, everything changed in respect of how we did our working, how me, even as a sales director, how I communicated with my clients. So on a daily basis, my job is to engage and to communicate with new prospective clients, to explain what it is that we do, for them to understand how we can help them in their everyday working. So I relied heavily on LinkedIn. I think Jolene actually mentioned it earlier on. It's a really important aspect of my everyday workings. I rely on it very heavily. Sales Navigator as well. Again, you know, this could be going over some people's heads, but it's a very basic tool in terms of if you do need to reach out to people within your business community. So again, I'm aware that maybe there's people listening in that would be maybe from a B2C perspective rather than B2B. So the companies that we're working with are very much B2B heavy, whereas so therefore the likes of LinkedIn would be our bread and butter. You know, that's how we communicate. Sales Navigator again is a really good tool that we use and that I use myself every day to communicate and to try and get some familiarity with our company and brand awareness. Whereas on the B2C side, I suppose, you might rely a little bit more heavier on the likes of Facebook, the likes of Twitter, Instagram. So I think it's all about peeling it all back, finding out what your actual customer base is and where you think that they might sit. So for the likes of the B2B, as I mentioned, you know, I know that mine sit on LinkedIn. I know they sit on Sales Nav. I know I can reach them via email or I can pick up the phone. Whereas on the B2C side, you know, it may be different channels that you need to communicate through, whether it be, as I mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. So I think communication is key, and to find out where exactly what makes your customer tick, I suppose, and how you can make life easy for them in terms of reaching out to you and I suppose doing business that way. So yeah, I think that's probably pretty much as far as I can bring you in terms of our journey, which is constantly evolving. And I suppose, again, back to my previous point, in terms of the companies that we're working with, they're all constantly evolving within that IT space. But also, I think it's important to say that, like, you know, when you are entering into a journey of digitalization, it never stops. You can't say, right, we're grand now, we're digitalized, because it's constantly changing as well, and there's constantly new things that you can be using or partaking in. So for us, it's all about kind of keeping the eyes and ears open and being savvy and kind of keeping a good profile on your customers through all of the digitalization process that you're going through.
Yeah, thank you, Aisling. I think it can be quite a daunting process, I'd say, for a lot of businesses, particularly for SMEs, because you said yourself, it's ongoing, it never stops. So making that initial investment, or, you know, choosing what software, what platforms you're going to go with, is a big decision for any company. We actually have a question in from one of our attendees kind of around that what suggestions might you have for small companies just to start their digitalization journey in order to allow them to compete with the bigger players out there? What's a good starting point, or how would you go about maybe just analyzing what you have versus what you need?
Yeah, again, it comes down to my earlier kind of point, is knowing your customer. You know, like digitalization, as you mentioned, it can be, it's a fairly buzzword, I suppose, now. And if you aren't very technically savvy, like a lot of us, it can be a little bit daunting, and it costs money. So if you're a small company starting out, you could think that my money is better spent elsewhere, you know. But I think definitely you need to make yourself, you need to put yourself out there. You need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence in terms of the types of companies that can help you with what you need. Because, like, from our perspective, you know, we're a small company and we're growing, we're expanding. Thankfully, everything's going great for us. But the types of companies that we're working with will be on a larger scale. They could have, you know, hundreds to thousands of employees, but still need us to generate their leads, their leads and their appointments. So from us working our day-to-day working for those kind of companies, two completely different concepts. So again, like, what we need compared to what our clients are using and what they need to attract the audience that they need to attract is completely different, and on a different scale in financially as well. So it's definitely about walking before you run, making sure you're doing your research, doing up a kind of like a checkpoint list in terms of, right, okay, what do we need to achieve here? You know, are we looking at, you know, customer experience? How can we help ensuring that our customers are, you know, communicated to, that everything is transparent, versus, you know, the digitalization aspect in terms of, right, okay, does my website need to be updated? I read a quote actually the other day, and it was saying about remaining relevant in trying times. Companies must deliver personalization that maps to consumer needs. I think that's really important, because buying patterns have changed. So you need to move to like a digital commerce quickly, deliver revenue growth while meeting your customer experience expectations. So again, it peels back to what kind of customer are you dealing with at the end of the day.
Yeah, personalization. I think it's a big statement. Personalization that matches customer expectations. It sounds simple, but it's quite complex. But
Yeah.
it's really on the money. And a question, and I'd expect Aisling, Jeff would probably have a good answer to this one too. And I think it's probably coming from an Irish perspective as well. And somebody's asked, how do you start conversations with potential clients on LinkedIn? I know a lot of Irish people would be like, oh, I'm no way, I'm just sending a stranger a message. But it's certainly become a lot more prevalent in the last 12 months. Your experience on that?
Me?
Either, yeah, both of you can input on that one.
I'll tell you how I do it. Is I provide value. I share content. I share my experience. I write something that I believe adds value and showcases my knowledge, my expertise, and my experience. And then I wait for I wait for folks to contact me. Now, you can't do that once and hope that it works. This is a continuous conversation, right? So for me, that's how I generate leads, generally speaking. And then if I get to a point where I find someone that I actually want to explicitly reach out to, I will point them back to that body of work, that, you know, several posts or ideas, and say, look, this is the kind of stuff that I've been thinking about, and I think we have an opportunity to collaborate, or I might be able to help you do X if you'd help me do Y. So there's always some value to point to. That's not like, hey, will you do something for me, right? So that's the way that I approach it.
Another question for you, Jeff, as well. How do you start to build credibility within sectors where there are so many other competitors that have already established themselves? So any tips you'd have for that? And it's because actually this is relevant to you as well.
So look, again, my experience really speaks to authenticity and humility. So I feel like as I present myself and my services to potential clients, I talk about what I've done, what worked well, what didn't work well, where I made some mistakes, what I learned from those mistakes. And then what I find is that level of authenticity and humility helps to generate a real connection with folks who are consuming that content, and that tends to grow. And rather than being like, I'm the best and I've never made any mistakes and you should definitely hire me because I will make you so successful, it's more like, well, here's what I know and here's how I learned it. And you learn stuff by making mistakes, right? You don't learn stuff by being 100% successful. That tends to elevate the conversations that I have a bit above the noise.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, there still is a huge area of learning, particularly I think in Irish and culturally, we don't like to admit making a single mistake. We're kind of brought up to not make any, but yet most people will agree, yeah, you need to make those. That's how we learn. It's absolutely there. I think companies can embrace that a little bit more. I'm very conscious at the time as well of getting people back to their work as well. There is one question that has come in there for Jolene. It's related to the LOETB. Jolene, can the LOETB provide bespoke courses to individual businesses? And do the courses have to be QQI certified or vendor certified?
Yeah, so yeah, Ronan, just under the Skills to Advance initiative. So there's two kind of ways we run the programs. We can run them on site, bespoke for a particular company where they have a number of people that want to be trained, or we can run a program and bring together a cluster of employers where they have similar training needs. So we offer both QQI certified training, and also we can provide vendor certified training as well. Again, as I say, the programs up to and including level 5 are free of charge, and up to level 6 is 70% funded.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Jolene. If anybody wants to find out more information, loetb.ie, quite simple, go onto the website there, and you'll also find out more information about the next 4 topics that are coming up. So every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks, 1 o'clock to 2 p.m, we're going to have more keynote speakers. And to say a huge thank you to both Jeff and Aisling for giving their time today to make a hugely valuable contribution. I know myself, I have a couple of notes jotted down. I have just spotted what it says on Jeff's t-shirt there about 2 minutes ago. It's just popped up as he sat back there. Quite interesting too. So look, I think I take from everybody just to say thank you so much. I think well done to Jolene and to Caroline and all the team and Anthony at LOETB for taking the lead, putting this together. And I think they're bringing some fantastic speakers, some really worthwhile topics that really every business has in their mind or has to look at over the past couple of couple of months. So that is it from us. We look forward to meeting you all next Wednesday and the following Wednesdays then. Jolene has put up there some information if you're looking for stuff on apprenticeship services, traineeships, or skills to advance. The various email addresses there, say loetb.ie, and you'll find them on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's the final word. I think, Jolene, have you anything to add to that? She's on mute.
Sorry, Ronan, I was just trying to come off mute. No, again, I just want to say thanks very much to everyone who attended. And just as I say, look, the hope will be at the end of this is to, you know, really to, I suppose, touch base with employers in the Laois and Offaly area to just create awareness in terms of LOETB and the supports and services that are available there for both employers and employees. And just to see what kind of the skills gaps are in the area of digitalisation. But even broader than that, again, you know, we do offer training in every area. So just to kind of touch base with them to see where the training gaps are and how we can, I suppose, support them to upskill and reskill current employees.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jolene. So that's it. Without further ado, we'll end it there now. Thank you. Thanks a million, Jeff. Thanks, Aisling. And thank you all for joining, and see many of you next Wednesday. Bye now.
Bye-bye.